The heart of an explorer is indomitable, a rush of adrenaline nothing else can give, eyes burning with passion and fury, a world of wonder to be explored and ultimately conquered. For some, the extreme heights, the absurd depths, the pitch-black caves, and the flourishing wilds are seen as inhospitable wild places, eliciting fear and caution. But for men like the Messner Brothers, the call of the wild sounds sweeter than any song, and they go to the farthest extremes to achieve their dream of conquering the world around them. Not for country, not for family, not for money, for glory and fame never ending. This is the story of Reinhold and Günther Massner, the mountaineering brothers that faced the biggest, most challenging mountains of the world, and what became of them when that challenge proved too much for them to bear. The story of the Messner brothers is told in colors of adventure and bravery. They were born in South Tyrol, a mountainous range in northern Italy. The region is inhabited by Italians and Germans, leading to Reinhold and Günther's names. From an early age, the brothers had an exquisite interest in climbing the mountainous terrains around the region they were born in. Reinhold was the older of the two, though they were two of 9 children. The Messner brothers were alpinists. Alpinism is a climbing practice that involves quick traveling, a reduced or minimum amount of equipment, and no oxygen to achieve a faster route and get to higher places in less time, as opposed to the usual route that expeditions make, which involves teams leaving caches of supplies along the route toward the top of the mountain being climbed. As teens, the Messner brothers performed a strict regime of physical workouts to withstand the harsh climbs they intended to make. As a result, they were lean men, built entirely for muscle, and capable to realize some of the most daring and physically consuming climbs. The brothers were fascinated by Hermann Bull, an Austrian climber, among one of the first mountaineers to apply the alpine techniques that the brothers used in his climb of the Himalayas, the highest mountains on Earth. In 1953, Bull reached the peak of Nanga Parbat, a Himalayan peak where 31 other climbers had already perished. In the book he wrote about the experience, Hermann claimed that the southern face of Nanga Parbat, known as Rupol, a sheer wall of rock and ice, could never be climbed by a human. Reinhold Massner took that as a challenge. He began preparing and training to become the best mountain climber and alpinist he could, to face the Rupol side of the Nanga Parbat and go where even his biggest idol hadn't dared. As teenagers and young adults, Reinhold and Günther tried to support themselves however they could. Günther worked in a bank. Reinhold taught math and worked as a mountain guide for less experienced mountaineers. Over Reinhold's career, he would identify more than 700 new routes to the Dolomites peaks. At a certain point in their mountaineering careers, the brothers realized they could seek sponsorships to maintain their dream of mountaineering without having to support themselves through regular work. So they procured sponsors, and the Messner brothers went on a climbing spree when they had them. They went to the Peruvian Andes, met with other climbing experts, and developed their techniques. Günther and Reinhold were exquisite climbers, and they showed it. Prepared and knowledgeable about the delicate, precise art of alpinism, they made mountains look like steepies as they traversed them nimbly and expertly. But the biggest challenge of their careers still loomed over them: Nanga Parbat, the Rupol face of the mountain. Undying glory to the man who could face it and return. Reinhold never brought with him a flag in any of his climbs. He was his nation. He climbed for himself alone, and the Rupol face of Nanga Parbat would be the jewel in the crown of his career. In 1970, the Messner brothers set out to meet the challenge that their idol had laid out all those years before. They joined up with a German team attempting the same climb, a 15,000-foot wall of rock and ice, widely regarded as the hardest climb in the world. Nanga Parbat is 8,126 meters at its tallest point, over 26,000 feet in height. The mountain has the infamous name Killer Mountain, given because of the intense danger of the climb and the high mortality rate of the climbers that dare to attempt it. Reinhold went first on the climb. Günther decided to follow him last minute. Unaware of the weather conditions because of the misinformation in the reports he'd gotten, Reinhold attempted the climb alone at first. As he went, he discovered that the wall of ice and rock that Hermann Bull had described was comparatively easier than the other climbs he had done. Feeling confident and in control, Reinhold continued to climb up the mountain, as Günther rushed behind him to try and catch up with his brother. The climb that Reinhold had made in a calm, collected manner, Günther sprinted on, manically rushing up the side of the mountain. Günther was desperate to reach his brother. The ascent to the top of Nanga Parbat was one thing. Descending the Rupal face in the weather they'd soon be facing full on was suicide. Günther knew this and rushed to meet his brother, thinking that the help he'd be able to provide would make the descent easier. Eventually, Günther did catch up with Reinhold. Reunited, the brothers reached the peak of Nanga Parbat an hour before sunset, an incredible achievement. However, they only had 1 hour to program their descent. Günther wasn't feeling well. Reinhold reports that his brother was delirious and altitude-sickened. He was experiencing severe exhaustion and was starting to become delirious. Günther pleaded with his brother to take the DIAMIR face on the descent, as the Rupal face was a tougher climb, and his condition wasn't the best for attempting it. Reinhold prepared the equipment and decided on the route they'd take to get down. All the while, Günther's condition worsened. He was suffering intensely from altitude sickness, and not long before they started their descent, he couldn't walk anymore, stumbling after his brother. They made camp no more than 200 meters away from their starting point and stayed there for the night, facing weather of minus 40 degrees Celsius. On their second day atop the mountain, progress was still slow, and now Reinhold too was suffering from the intense conditions. He was starting to get delirious and his toes were freezing. Another day of slow, useless progress, as he couldn't go very far in the state that Günther was in. They even heard some climbers taking a route not far from where they were, but they couldn't communicate with them. Realizing that help wouldn't come, Reinhold decided to make his Hail Mary. Already suffering intensely from the effects of the cold, Reinhold was now becoming more and more delirious, and to top it all off, dehydration started kicking in. Luckily, Reinhold found a small geyser of water on the descent and drank profusely. He looked behind to see that his brother had disappeared. Günther was stumbling behind him throughout the descent, but now he was nowhere to be seen. Reinhold continued his descent on frostbitten feet, delirious and sleep-deprived until he found local farmers who could aid him. Afterward, he'd be quoted saying he cheated death. The search for Günther's body went on for over 30 years. All the while, Reinhold was accused mercilessly of having abandoned his brother behind. His father went so far as to say that the wrong son came down from the mountain. Reinhold maintained his innocence, believing that an avalanche had taken his brother's life. A development happened when climbers found a foot with a leather boot on it in the DIAMIR face of the Nanga Parbat, a piece of equipment that had been retired for years now in favor of the plastic equipment that modern-day climbers and alpinists used. The DNA in the foot inside of the boot was confirmed to belong to the Messner brothers. Later, Günther's body was found, and in 2022, his other foot was located, all in the DIAMIR face of the mountain. This serves as evidence to back Reinhold's claim that his brother fell in an avalanche and to clear his name more than 50 years after the fatal climb. Reinhold went on to have an astonishing career in mountain climbing. He was the first man to solo Everest in 1980. He crossed Antarctica and Greenland without snowmobiles or dog sleds. He was the first person to climb all 14 peaks above 26,000 feet in the world. He wrote more than 80 books on mountaineering and his experiences, but he never forgot that morning in Nanga Parbat, where his brother's life was taken by the force of the mountain. What are your thoughts on this? Let us know in the comments section down below. Thank you for watching this video. If you found it interesting, dive deeply into the like and subscribe buttons. Let us know what you thought of it in the comments. See you again soon in another video, if you dare.